Eventually, Robert reunited with the band to record their 9th album. Released at the end of 1979, In Through the Outdoor went on to sell more than 5 million copies.
The release of our album Head Games coincided with the release of In Through the Outdoor. Somebody brought me a test pressing of it and I heard it and I thought, oh, Jesus.
Despite the success of In Through the Outdoor, discernible cracks were beginning to form within Led Zeppelin's airtight organization as well.
I've witnessed Bonzo just cut loose. He had definitely split personality. He would when he was drinking, when he wasn't drinking. He was a big teddy bear. He wasn't one of the ones who messed around a lot at all. He wanted to go home to his wife and kids.
He was such a good father, and he really loved his wife, and he really loved his kids, Zoe and Jason. I think that John's only problem was he had a classic drinking problem. His personality completely, he was a different person sober than he was drunk. And when he became drunk, he became loud and boisterous and a different person. But when he was sober, he was like gentle as a lamb.
With Bonzo, it was like going out with a sailor who had 12 hours to live, because he packed it all in. He was a lovely guy. At the end of one tour, I went up to say goodbye, knocked on his door, yeah, come in. And there he was. He was packing his suitcase. He was very fastidious, John. He had all his clothes hung and very neat and tidy. But he was wrapping these sort of Japanese dolls and little dolls that he collected from various countries and towns for Zoe, his little daughter. And he was wrapping them individually and said, this is for Zoe. I don't see enough of her. And they were all laid out in a row in his suitcase. And I thought, wow.
People don't realize how much time they spend away from home. So he would get really drunk and then become a whole other human being, a real angry guy.
The mixed feelings would come when he had to go to work, and he didn't particularly want to go to work. He wanted to be at home with his wife and maybe having a baby or something like that.
By September, Led Zeppelin was ensconced in rehearsals for their upcoming highly anticipated Tour of America. But it was during these rehearsals that the group was dealt an unthinkable blow.
Bonzo, when he got drunk, he didn't want to be in the raw end with him. Well, he's just gets very nasty, you know, very wild, you know. The booze, you know, the booze, I mean, that's what killed him, you know.
John Bonham was known as a man who loved his alcohol. On September 24th, 1980, Bonham was picked up from his hotel for rehearsals at Bray Studios. During the journey, Bonham consumed a steady diet of quadruple screwdrivers and continued to drink heavily at the studio. A halt was called to the rehearsals late in the evening, and the band retired to Jimmy Page's house in Windsor. After midnight, Bonham had fallen asleep and was taken to bed. He died in his sleep later that night. He was only 32.
Shocked. I mean, I was just shocked. No one knew at that moment how he died. We knew that they were rehearsing, but how could he die in a rehearsal? You know, this was the thing. We didn't realize at the time he'd drunk and they put him to bed, and you know, the classic rock and roll death, you know, choking on his own vomit. So I thought he had a car crash with drugs, and I had no idea. I just knew something terrible. The fallout from this was going to be disastrous, because they were such a tight-knit band, and if one went, that was it.
Yeah, there were 4 equal members, you know, when they were on that stage. I mean, as I say, you know, one would shine more than the other for a certain part, but I mean, together they were a unit. I mean, I think that's why they broke up, that you know, Bonham was an integral part, but that was what Led Zeppelin was those 4 guys.
When he died, the band evaporated, and I think those guys just knew that you couldn't put anybody else in there and do what Bonham did and make that band work.
I think everybody probably wanted Led Zeppelin to continue, and there were plenty of contenders for the job of being the drummer with Led Zeppelin. Cozy Powell, Carmine Apiece, people that could have played it, they could have done the gig, but it wouldn't have been the same because John Bonham was so special and his personality was so powerful. And of course, as I mentioned before, they were a team and they were friends, and you couldn't really replace him. And I think, in retrospect, it was the best thing to do.
Part of my charisma is, you know, is reliant on the other 3, you know, and the same with everybody else, you know. We really get off on playing together. That's the whole secret of... I couldn't really go away and play with anybody else, because if I wanted to play, who else would I need for a drummer but Bonzo, you know? And the same with Jimmy and Jonesy. I don't think it wouldn't be right.
Bonzo was one of Robert's best friends from a very early age, so Robert was almost mortally wounded. He was wounded forever after. It took a big toll on Robert. And I think it took a big toll on the other two as well.
Led Zeppelin, what can you say? They're a huge influence, a huge influence on everybody.
It was the most amazing thing ever. You never see rock and roll like that ever again. There was nothing like it. I mean, they were the most fantastic live rock band ever.
No band has ever matched them. Bands have come along who have been fantastic, but who can do all of that?
Zeppelin will always be the #1 hard rock band. They were 4 amazing guys. They looked great, they played great. They were the first adventurous hard rock band, and by virtue of that fact, they'll always be the best.